Okay. Audio seems a bit not what's the word? Dampened for some reason, not sure why. But anyways, here we are, August 26th, 2:11 p.m. Alaska time, the true time zone, the one I should be in, 6:11 p.m. Eastern US time, the time zone I am stranded in and have been since 2020 happened. I am now 32. I am ancient. My bones are decaying into dust. I can feel the process ongoing as we speak. Let's get everything up and running. Oh, yeah, that's why it was there, because I was looking at agriculture being conducted in the middle of a desert, because we as a species are intelligent. So intelligent. All right. Everything looks okay-ish for the most part. Let's bring up, and also while I'm doing this, let me show you, if you guys want to avoid using the letting Google brute force the use of its AI for everything you search for, just to go to things, you can just do stuff like this in your search bar, and your browser will auto remember a lot of stuff for you so that you can go to things like, say, your Google Docs or to my Gmail if I wanted to. So you can skip past actually going through like Google itself, because any search for anything automatically triggers the use of its AI, which, adds to the whole illusion of growing demand for AI, which has led to AI now exceeding a power consumption level of 51 gigawatts. It is now using more power than the two countries that are right around that area are Mexico and Saudi Arabia. So AI worldwide is now using more power than either of them. That puts it, does it, is it in the top 10 consumers now? Hold on. Let me think off the top of my head. It, oops, we lagging? Nope, we're not lagging. Okay, it goes China, US, uh, India, Russia, Japan for the top five still. And then just barely Germany, Deutschland is still above Canada. And then Canada, Brazil, South Korea, and then France. Okay, no, it's not in the top 10 yet. It's in the number 11 spot. AI has reached the number 11 consumer spot globally if it were to be listed as a country. So once it passes 60, it will have exceeded France. Once it passes 65, it will exceed both South Korea and Brazil. Once it passes 70, it will exceed Canada. And by that point, Germany will probably have declined below Canada because they're rapidly deindustrializing, just like the UK did previously. Uh, Otherwise, it would have to, if Germany stopped that process, it would have to exceed 75 to exceed Germany. And then once it exceeds 100, it will have exceeded Japan. Once it exceeds about 120, it will have exceeded Russia. And then if it keeps going past that, the thresholds suddenly spike up way faster. But thankfully, the rate has slowed down over the. Oh, yeah, I forgot I had Epic Pen open. So AI's power consumption had been growing like this, and then it went up real fast in the later half of last year. But over the first half of this year, it slowed down to just this. Thankfully, praise God. So it only went up from uh, just under 45 up to about 51. So that was a thankfully drastic slowdown that I hope continues and or reverses when the AI bubble pops. because that investment bubble is honestly looking pretty similar to the dot-com bubble from the late 90s and early 2000s. But anyways, oh yeah, that was a side tangent just because I was talking about going to things directly. So also for anybody who doesn't know that this exists, in the description under any video of mine, there is a link to this Drive folder with all these different, get off the screen, with all these different subfolders that have all different kinds of free to access, free to use graphs. Uh, like I said, any you can use any of the graphs in like actual stuff if you want. You can use clips of my videos if you want. Even uh, I prefer if you link back to me, though that's not required. It's not like I can enforce that anyways. And if you suddenly make like a huge amount of money off of it somehow, it would be nice if I could get like 2% of that cut. But again, that's not required. I'm doing this because so many sites are starting to put stuff behind a paywall. So I'm making sure information stays free to access in some regards. Like, for example, PDE here, tradingeconomics.com, used to be such a great source for free database info. However, they have started locking things now. You can only go back 10 years in most cases. Sometimes it's not even that far back. If you want to go any farther back, it's behind a paywall. Pricing, learn more. Questions, contact us. Member, log in. Subscribe for $7.99 a month. Or if you want to, can you still do the can you still choose random dates? Hold on. Can you? I wonder if it's within, if it's less than 10 years of time span, can you still choose specific dates, or is that paywall too? Yep, that's paywall too. So, instead of getting paywalled, you could come here and you could see the graphs as I made them. They don't look as nice as, official graphs from official businesses you'll find, because I just have to make them in Google Docs, Excel. But they are actually free to access. There's no paywall for those. And we got oil production, oil demand, consumption by product breakdown for each country. I still need to work on expanding the individual gasoline, diesel, and jet fuel demand graphs for each country. We got natural gas data, population and demographic data, timelines, metals and minerals, and mining. We got all sorts of stuff. Ah, oh dang! I did not know you were 62. I I thought the age range demographic I was dealing with was mostly older than me, but I thought it was primarily like 40s. Let's see. What was I actually going to talk about? Oh yeah. So, but thank you for everyone saying happy birthday and giving life advice paragraphs. I'll read stuff in a second. I wanted to get to this real quick though, because this is hilarious. So here we have Indonesia, collection of islands here, population 284, 283 million. Probably gonna peak and plateau briefly around like 310 or so. So the government of Indonesia did something amazing. So those decisions sometimes where you see a government do something and you just truly do not get it. Like you sit there thinking like there's no way. That there's no actual way. No one is this dense. No one is this dumb. No one is this blatant. So the government of Indonesia recently, although they've supposedly stopped the decision, they decided uh, because it would benefit their population would be so happy about this, obviously, they decided to skip the process of, gradually increasing property taxes as they rise as a nation and as their people become uh, like more middle income. They decided to do this, and they decided they were going to raise their property taxes nationally by 1,000%. They were just going to 10 times it right out of the gate, out of nowhere. So, this is going to surprise you. The people of Indonesia were really, really pissed about this. Let's draw some angry eyebrows there, too. So, they're not all that happy, and they've started getting a bit fiery and rebellious about it. So, the government's kind of had to back off of that a little bit, which means they're still sneakily going to do it anyways. But so the people of Indonesia, as a random culturally chosen symbol of resistance, as they're graffitiing stuff and busting up like random tax offices, has been the Straw Hat Crew flag from One Piece. So One Piece, for those who don't know, is a popular anime that's been going on for quite a while. It started way back when I was 12, I think. And there's the crew of main characters that's called like the Straw Hat Crew are like just kind of meandering their way around the world. They're supposed to be going to a specific location, but it's quite clear that they're just going to keep this going forever. And they've just been like meandering around the world and like uh, toppling random dictatorships single-handedly and like beating up and wiping out like mafias and stuff because there is a like a global law enforcement government force that doesn't really do its actual job. It just kind of protects the interest of the business class of the world, which is basically exactly like what happens in the real world. So the people of Indonesia have started using the One Piece straw hat flag, and thus the Indonesian government has banned the One Piece anime flag and has put out actual collectible bounties on anyone who is seen flying it. They have declared war on One Piece, like just I guess going over the top of their heads the like absurdity of a national government declaring war on an anime. They have declared war on fictional characters because they are upset that their people are upset about the idea that they want to increase property taxes by 1,000%. So this is just draw random doodly spirals everywhere. So that's going to be funny to watch how that all plays out. So this has rapidly, like, the whole global situation is like really rapidly turning into a like nonstop nonsensical clown show. And we'll come back over here. Let's see. Yeah, blah blah blah. uh, yeah, I don't find anything less fun now that I'm self-declared ancient. I just can't do anything anymore because I don't really make any money. I mean, I was able to do a lot of stuff, even making less than 14,000 a year, because as I've explained before, back up home, my life expenses were just so low. because up home in Fairbanks, we had free public transit, free heating, free water. Uh, Everything in Fairbanks was actually cheaper than it is around here, down in the southeastern continental US, where everything is like constantly supposedly bragged about being cheaper than like other locales in the country. Most stuff up home was actually cheaper than it is around here, including a lot of cases of rent. But down here now, if I were to exit my parents' house and like live somewhere else around here, it would be an instantaneous screw job of having to pay for literally everything short of like a subscription fee to being allowed to breathe oxygen, but I'm sure that's coming at some point. Oh yeah, uh and healthcare, I forgot, was almost free. Not entirely free back up home, but it was almost free. It was pretty close. Like the most expensive thing I ever had to pay for was the two times that I had something go wrong with my ear and I had to get my ear sliced open, and I only ended up having to pay a couple $100s for that. Whereas, like, down here, that would have been in the thousands, obviously. But yeah, it's not, I don't like not enjoy going places anymore. I just literally can't. The only time I got to go any place recently was when Josh grabbed me and we went up to Myrtle Beach and we did laser tag. And it had been 14? No, 13 years since we went into that laser tag arena. My skills did not disappear. I came out number one every single match, top player, undisputed champion. Josh can attest to this. I was I devastated everybody. I did not lost my domineering impetus in laser tag. But yeah, that and the one other time he's taken me up to Myrtle Beach in the last 5 years, those are the only times I've left the general area because I just can't afford to. But what else was anybody saying? 30. Wow, there's someone here who's actually younger than me, besides Josh, but he's only a few months younger, so he doesn't count. Uh, the new capital is a dumb thing, but it's not enough to compared to like total national spending to induce like an obscene level of bankruptcy. Not on the scale that like Russia's war in Ukraine has induced their bankruptcy, both through spending on it and the trade cutoffs that resulted, and now the uh, crippling of their oil and gas infrastructure as so many refineries have been hit and taken out over the last like 3 weeks. They are now down, confirmed offline, 1.1 million barrels per day of refinery capacity is now offline for at least the next few months. So that now means that they're on short supply for domestic fuel, and also thusly what the like refined fuels, gasoline, diesel, jet fuel, and stuff that they were exporting. And obviously, refined end products are more expensive than just crude oil, so that earns more money. They're now having to instead uh, the numbers of refined products that they were exporting that would still be within margin before hindering domestic supplies. They're now having to instead export just crude oil, which earns, like half as much money. And also, this over the last month and a half has seen their gas prices, gasoline, petrol, whatever you call it, from whatever country, shoot up like a rocket. So, Russia's gasoline prices at the fuel pump have always been subsidized to an extent. It's not like Saudi Arabia. So, down in Saudi Arabia, for example, for most, I forgot when it got raised to 50 cents. It was sometime in the 2000s, but for like 20 years, gasoline or petrol down there in Saudi Arabia was 50 cents a gallon, flat, stabilized. The government said that they were going to raise it up to $1, and it actually caused the Saudi citizens who, have been otherwise really lenient on how oppressive they let their government be to them, that caused them to actually riot and start burning stuff. So the Saudi government reconciled and agreed to only raise the national gasoline price to 75 cents per gallon. So the price in Russia is not subsidized as extensively uh, per liter. Per liter, it was somewhere between like 50 and 60 cents per liter, which would come out to like between $2 and $2.50 per gallon, depending on different finances at the time. Immediately after the 2022 invasion, it shot up briefly to a record high of 96 or 97 cents per liter, which comes out around like 350 or 375 per gallon. And then it dropped back down and gradually renormalized between 60 and 70 cents per liter, or or about like $2.25, $2.75 per gallon. Started climbing as they started accruing damage to refineries over the last year. But now, over these last few weeks, it has just upsurged to the point where now, even in areas in Western Russia over here, where everything is closer and everything is thusly cheaper than the far-flung areas, or cheaper than in Crimea, for example. Even in Western Russia, uh, the like average signs at the fuel pumps were reading what came out to when you doing the what is it, the exchange exchange rate, uh, as of like 2 days ago, so they've likely increased since then. They were at 99 cents per liter, which is basically running in on $4 a gallon. And in places like over in the east, like in the eastern Siberia portion, so over there near Vladivostok, and over near like Irkutsk or Yakutia and places like that, and in precious Crimea, in places like that, the prices have now hit around $1.20 per liter, which is pushing like $5+ per gallon, which for the like former standard that Russia in general was used to is pretty exorbitantly high. And also because of the shortages and disruptions, stations in, whoa, you're not supposed to be that big. Uh, Back down to this. Stations in, or no, we'll do this. There we go. Stations in Crimea and over there in the eastern portion of Siberia are now actually frequently running out of fuel for days at a time, and having to impose like limits, like you can only purchase this many liters per person per day or whatever. So that is ongoing stuff there. that was technically a diatribe that was launched by commenting on the Indonesia situation. So no, Indonesia building the whole new capital thing, that's not enough to do this. This was just them really, really wanting money because they want money. And this is just one of those smashing your head into a brick wall things where like there's no way, no one is actually that dumb. No one on whatever committee this was actually sat there and said, "Yeah, we're just going to tell the people that we're going to increase their rent or mortgage whatever taxes by 1,000%. They'll love it." No one sat around and said this was a good idea. I can't actually believe that. No one is this dense. No one is this dumb. Now I know that I'm deluding myself by thinking no one's that dumb because obviously people are that dumb because they did it. But for the sake of like maintaining my own sanity, I have to at least pretend that no one is actually that dumb. Then also, we have Venezuela developing. So we, U.S., have now sent a number of naval assets, a small fleet of sorts, a number of destroyers, accompanying vessels, some hidden submarines, obviously, although those never get disclosed. And not one of our big aircraft carriers, not one of the super carriers that has like 70 combat jets on it, just one of the smaller ones that has like 30 or 35. The So we sent that group down here, and maybe it's been theorized that Trump just wants to go for it and just go ahead and knock out Maduro. Uh, there's been no like verbally acknowledged pretext yet until loosely kind of a few days ago, because I was waiting for us to do this when Venezuela eventually tried to invade Guyana, but they haven't been willing to commit to that yet. And I didn't think they would like really try it until later in the 2020s, which we're getting close to. But that might get brought up as subject matter in any pretext speech that gets given. But also, uh, Russia was like making big like threat speeches recently about supposedly shipping a bunch of Shahid drones to Venezuela, and so Venezuela could use them to attack the US as punishment for the US not agreeing to Russia's terms on the Ukraine negotiation thing, which they're not actually going to do that because that would be completely suicidal, particularly for Venezuela. At least I have to believe Venezuela knows that. But then again, Venezuela also really legitimately wants to try to claim 2/3 of Guyana, which would also be equally suicidal. So we have that smaller fleet kind of sitting there waiting in case we decide to just go through with it. Whether we're waiting for them to do something or we're just going to pull the trigger preemptively. But chance Venezuela might be happening a bit sooner than I initially anticipated. Like I anticipated later 2020s, like 2027 and beyond. I particularly would have expected them, especially to, if they were doing any strategic thinking regarding their like invasion of Guyana, I would have expected them to probably wait and try it while Taiwan was going on, since that is one that we are going to get directly into. So they would probably, in some attempt at strategic thinking, they would probably want to do it while Taiwan was going on because we would be quote unquote too busy, even though we really wouldn't be because Venezuela is kind of like a swatting a fly scenario because they don't have a real military. They do have dudes in ski masks that drive around in jeeps and abduct people, though. That is a thing they have, though that's not really an effective military force. Let's see, do we have anything else on this actual list before I start talking about random stuff? A few things looks like so IDF bombed Yemen a bunch again a few days ago, blew up more fuel and oil storage stuff, uh, blew up one of the buildings where like some of the Houthis generals and command staff were, and a few other associated locales. Also, oops, need to zoom in. Also pulled a Mockingjay, move in Gaza and bombed a hospital. Then waited till a bunch of rescue workers came in to try to dig people out from the rubble of the hospital, and then bombed and killed all the rescue workers. You know, normal, rational actor type stuff. And this time, even Israeli media, even Israel's own domestic like news agencies, have actually willingly published articles and anchor desk segments, just flat out admitting that yeah, there's no need for an investigation. There was no real target. The whatever commander ordered this just did it because he felt like doing it. So okay, now we're uh, wait, 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 the lag. The lag is gone. So now everyone's starting to move past mask off as in being like a joke, as in like, you're saying the quiet part out loud. Now people are actually just like knowingly removing the masks from their faces entirely and just saying, yeah, sociopathy and psychopathy and sadism is cool actually. So this is only going to lead to fun places for everybody. Ah, let's see. What else did we have here? Blah blah. Thank you. Thank you. Jackal Enterprises of Ohio. But it's not gonna be affecting you. That the gasoline price surge in Russia is in Russia, unless you're one of those random Russians who has an English name for some reason. Blah blah blah. There are two. There are two new Ukrainian domestic missiles to answer that sentence in chat. As part of the way that the Trump administration is getting around the fact that it has to pretend uh, at face value to its voter base, like it's not helping Ukraine, since that was one of his like campaign things. Even though we are going to continue doing so, because like I've said before, uh, the U.S. long-term military strategic choices are not really made by the White House. They're made by the military itself, and it is strategically in the U.S.'s best interest to keep this going and make sure, as long as possible, to a total dissolution end or not, that Russia continues to bleed out the remainder of its strength. So this was going to continue one way or another, but Trump publicly wants to pretend that he's not actually really giving them anything. So part of that has been us and associated others like Poland and especially France uh, giving them stuff, schematics, tech development things, factory production components to be able to just build cruise missiles themselves. Even though it is us like giving all of the stuff individually, components, factory machinery, uh, paying to keep funding it and rebuilding the things. Trump gets to play the you know I'm actually not really doing anything approach so that he can keep the cult happy while also continuing to act out the U.S. strategic aims as actually dictated by the U.S. military itself. So Ukraine is now manufacturing, apart from the Neptune missile, which was a short range one, draw a missile head here, that could go like a couple hundred kilometers. There is, I forgot what the middle one is called, but there is a middle one that can go up to about 1,000. And there is now the much bigger one that has, the whole rocket engine ramjet scoop on the bottom that can go up to 3,000 kilometers, which would go off the screen. So hold on. Let's see. Let's get out here. Where's the tool? So launched from, let's say, somewhere along the Dnipro River uh, for a safe from the front line distance. There you go. There's 1,000 kilometers. So 1,000 kilometer one could reach anywhere within where this line is going. So basically anywhere within there. The 3,000 kilometer one go like way out there, all the way as far as Omsk, Tyumen, past Yekaterinburg, way up into even stuff out in Komi and Krasnoyarsk. So, excuse me. Oh, it's actually through Google Earth. That's how I stop it. Okay, there we go. So yeah, those are about to be a thing. They started production of those secretly over the past few months to make sure they at least had enough on hand to use for when, after announcing that they exist, Russia potentially tries striking the factories. Even though that's not really Russia's MO, they tend to prefer bombing kindergartens and hospitals. And in the case of most recently in Kherson, uh, they've been flying the remote controlled, not the pre-programmed, but the remote control drones that like drop grenades, the big 8 or octocopter ones. They've been flying along the I believe it's this highway or it might be the highway to Mykolaiv. They've been flying along like this highway and just like randomly dropping grenades on like completely random passenger cars just driving along the highway because reasons, I guess. After doing this for 3.5 years, random terror bombing Chechnya style, and Ukraine more and more steadfastly refusing to surrender. They still got it locked in their head, apparently, that if they just do it one more week of terror bombing, then Ukraine will finally see the light and surrender. Because that's what happened in Chechnya. Even though Chechnya was strategically different, because it is a tiny little pocket, like 10% the size of Ohio, and barely even had 1 million people at the time, half of which were killed in that terror bombing when everything was like leveled to the ground because basically everyone in Chechnya is just in the one city, Grozny. Whereas Ukraine is like, a large actual country with dozens of millions of people, multiple cities, smaller sub cities everywhere. So the terror bombing thing only really worked in Chechnya because it wasn't like oops, no, what am I doing? Why am I hitting the volume control? It wasn't like playground by playground like mediocre terror bombing. It was leveling the place and like killing half the population. And even on behalf of Assad, when they did that in Syria over the 2010s and early 2020s, and did kill, you know, hundreds of thousands of Syrians, like a percentage of the population, not like 10% or more, but a few percentage points, didn't really work for Syria either. The resistance groups really didn't go away. It was a bad one-time experience that Russian command seems to have just like taken as the way the world will work out for them. Is this one time when they did mass terror bombing and wiped out like half of this population, uh, that population has since submitted to the rule of Moscow and pledged their fealty to them, like in the old feudal days. But that's clearly proven to have been like a one-time instance. But that command staff is not seeming to get it through their skulls. Was there anything else? Not on the sheet of paper that I wrote stuff down on. Oh yeah, some energy developments though. Algeria has finally, draw a big smiley face, put an exclamation point there. Algeria has finally completed the initial round of expansions to their various natural gas fields, a lot of which are here. As they were always capable of producing more, the reason that they plateaued at 10 billion cubic feet per day was because there was no further market for them, because Russia was supplying a lot of Europe. But in the absence of Russia, now Algeria is wanting to fill in their portion of that gap. And so they are now doing so by a substantial boost as they just turned on the first half of those expansion projects a few months ago, jumping themselves from 10 up to now 13 billion cubic feet per day. So they are now the supplier of an additional 3 billion cubic feet per day to the export market, almost all of which is entirely obviously being bought by Europe. And got that on the latest graphs, which I should have just uploaded the updated versions of to the Google Drive. Where is it? Al Jazeera. So yeah, you can see they're hanging around 10, fluctuating between like 9.5 and 10.5, sometimes 11. And then there we go is this year. The spike right at the end is this year where they've activated the expansions, the capacity expansions, and jumped up to about 13. So that was about a year. That was about a year past when it was supposed to happen. So there were a lot of delays off and on with that, but it is finally going through. And the second round will obviously take another few years at least, but it will eventually. Excuse me, can we actually click on the thing? What is going on here? Okay, that's the mouse, yes. Here's the thing. All right, well, I'm just going to deactivate you then if you're not working. Close. So in another few years, sometime between now and 2030, Algeria will activate the second set, which should boost it up to about 15 or 16 billion cubic feet per day. And even just the conventional remaining gas reserves that it has in the already discovered fields would be enough that it can maintain that for like 20 years after that point till about 2050. And the southwestern area down here, where you see this basin continues, has been relatively unexplored, although several blocks have been purchased there. So exploration is beginning. And so more is likely to be discovered in Algeria, but also across the big basin of Algeria, interior Algeria, there is also an awful lot of shale gas, which does actually, now that Exxon has studied it more thoroughly, Exxon and who else is doing it with them? Eni, the Italian oil major. Now that they've studied it more thoroughly and specifically, they have determined it actually is very viable. It is actually of similar quality to the stuff in the US and Argentina. Whereas, for example, other shales elsewhere have proven not really viable, like in the UK. The Boshenov shale in Russia is not really viable. The Sichuan area shales in China are really not that viable. They're a bit better than the UK and Russia, but they're just really not that viable. So far, the US and Argentina are the only ones where it's been like really worthwhile. But now it looks like, as of the Exxon and Eni studies, that the shale gas formations in Algeria are actually of similar density and similar viability to the stuff in the U.S. and Argentina. So they're going to do some testing with that in the next couple of years, and as long as it does work out the way they think it will, then they're going to expand shale gas production in Algeria once we head towards the end of this decade and then into the 2030s, which could work out to anywhere between an extra 5 to as high as 20 billion cubic feet per day of capacity for Algeria. It would depend on the speed of development and on the like stacked density and permeability once fracked of the rock. The the only issue that makes it a bit higher cost than the US and Argentina is water supply, because they're going to here, let me see if Epic Pen will work if I open it again. No? Why is it not working? Is it drawing out here? Okay, it'll draw out here, but it won't draw on Google Earth? Okay, now it will. All right. Close the browser and open it again. That was the secret. So the only issue is that they're going to have to pre-invest in a water pipeline to get water in all the way from the Mediterranean, so that they don't take fresh water from the little available sources in the desert, and also that they don't risk contaminating anything that they put back in that regard. So that's going to be a bit of a project to get that done. That's going to be a bit of like a forward investment that makes Algeria's shale formations, I think they're situated like this. It's going to make Algeria's shale formations a bit higher of a cost threshold, but thankfully, it's predominantly gas in Algeria, and gas prices have oscillated as things have happened globally, but they're not as price depression risk prone in the way that oil prices are, because OPEC can always like suddenly surge production, or someone else could suddenly surge production and cause oil prices to just buckle, or uh, you know, uh, China could attempt to invade Taiwan, have that fall out, and have their at-home economics because of global trade repercussions implode, and see their oil demand crash by several million barrels per day, also causing a oil price buckling. That kind of potential for negative volatility is not there with natural gas. OPEC is not like OPEC doesn't do natural gas marketeering. Like they're not. No one's like sitting around uh, with ready to turn on at a moment's notice extra like 10, 20, 30 billion cubic feet per day that could be switched on in like 2 weeks and like flood the market, causing prices to collapse. So, natural gas has oscillated over time, but it does not carry the same risk of immediate volatility that oil prices do, at least in terms of immediate volatility on the whims of like multi-government organizational decisions and stuff like that. In fact, the most natural gas has more upward price volatility than it does negative price volatility, whereas oil has both an equal amount of upward and downward price volatility factors coming at it from multiple angles. Natural gas is a lot more stable. So Exxon and Eni are likely to commit to the Algerian natural gas, even with like expensive things like the seawater Mediterranean pipeline thing that they'll have to do for it, because natural gas does tend to be more stable. Wait, wait, wait for the lag, wait for the lag, wait for the lag, wait for the lag. Quickly, then I'll read chats, then I'm going out to walk and pick up trash. A few new energy records that were hit while you guys weren't looking. You'll see those in the natural gas and electricity monthly data videos coming in the next few days. China hit a new record high for their electricity demand this summer, whereas last summer they got up to 1.22 terawatts of electricity demand. And now in total, year round, are averaging over a terawatt solidly, getting close to averaging 1.1. Last month, they averaged 1.25 terawatts of demand load on their grid at any given moment, which is, again, equal to about an entire third of the whole world's electricity demand. Uh, what was the what was the other what was the other record I was thinking? Oh yeah, Saudi Arabia also hit a new record, hitting 57 gigawatts of power demand in the middle of the summer, which obviously the summer, especially for a desert nation, is when their electricity demand is going to be the highest. So they got up to an average demand load for the middle of the summer of 57 gigawatts. Their actual like peak load, the highest point it got to was 75, but that was at one specific hour on one specific day. In terms of the general midsummer average, they were averaging about 57. And uh, I got, what were the others? Oh, yeah, sorry. So the UAE, once again, this is the third time it's hit this high. For the UAE's domestic oil consumption levels across all products, again, despite the fact that it only has a population of 10 million, just because, so much nonsense is going on there, because rich people doing rich people stuff. They once again, this time, even though they've gotten rid of their oil fired power generation, they are now almost entirely natural gas and nuclear. They still, once again, hit 1.25 million barrels per day of oil demand for a country of only 10 million people. And not all of whom are living like actual lives, because 2 or so million of those people are literal modern slaves from India, Pakistan, and Bangladesh. I don't know if you guys have seen some of those documentaries where they've managed to actually get footage from inside those like massive encampments outside of Dubai and Abu Dhabi, where it's just like endless little cube habitations, and inside there's like 20 people packed living in there in like five stacked high bunk beds, and they're only allowed to leave to go to work and then come back, and they can't like quit and go home because their passports get taken from them the moment they set foot in the country. So there is actual literal slavery going on. So in reality, it's only about 8 million people in the UAE who are actually living like somewhat oil costly lives that are actually doing stuff. And they hit 1.25 million barrels per day again. Vietnam set a new oil demand record, uh, not too much higher than last year, but still climbing, as they're still going to keep doing so as they are a rising nation. They hit 735,000 barrels per day for their summertime highest point of oil demand this summer. And I think that's it, or at least that should be it. Okay, now let me be responsible. Let's get rid of Google Earth since it only lags everything. Okay, blah, blah, blah. Oh, there's nothing new anyways. I mean, I'll randomly search and look into it later, I guess, but I usually hear about things in regards to the kinds of stuff that I would speak about and report about, and I haven't heard anything Somalia related of massive significance, at least lately. Where did I put my water? There it is. Let me drink my water. All right. This is probably going to be it. I've been going for about an hour, and I promised Josh that I would only do an hour. Awesome. I'm actually going to be able to keep that promise then. All right. So unless anything comes up, any questions or super chats or anything like that, then I'm gonna head out very shortly and go walk around and pick up a bunch of redneck trash. I do feel like I'm forgetting about something, but I can't remember whatever that something is. So what have you? Oops, no, wait. We do this. This is how you get recently open. And the thumbnail of this video was a cropped picture of this dude who's a sort of altered version of the character Dr. Zabaldo from a really old cartoon back in the 90s uh, that I sort of turned into a character in like my own universe. But I figured I was gonna put up something with like a character like looking really like old and decaying. But then I remembered that I have this. This was done by my friend in Belarus a couple of years ago, who's about to be doing something for me again soon. But I figured like, oh yeah, like the super nerded out the super nerded out hyper like autistically enthusiastic energy lecture face character that like that's actually perfectly fitting for me. And he's pointing at the basic child level diagram for the extraction of uranium from seawater for an infinite uranium supply, which is a thing we should do, but we're not going to do because we're only focused on choosing the dumbest possible decisions for our civilizational future, like living off of solar panels and batteries. That's really going to end well. All right, there's nothing else, so I will see you guys. Damn it, went 40 seconds over. Apologies, Josh.